Alright, so I'm going to be taking some measurements. Alright, so first of all, the patient is going to be sitting upright, the shoulder is going to be adducted, and the forearm is going to be in supination. Right there, leave it right there. Second thing, I'm going to be finding the lateral epicondyle. Going to be right here on the side, and we're going to be a little bit more towards the lateral side. Okay. So once we find the lateral epicondyle, we're going to put the fulcrum of the goniometer over the lateral epicondyle. So I'm going to be putting the non-movable bar over it, and it's going to be parallel to the midline of the humerus over the lateral epicondyle, and the other one is going to be parallel to the radius. Alright? So right there, we're going to move, and we're going to be taking the first measurement. The first measurement is 0. Okay? So now, I'm going to stabilize. I'm going to keep my finger on the axis of rotation, which is the lateral epicondyle. I'm going to stabilize the humeral proximal to the lateral epicondyle. I'm going to place my goniometer, the non-movable bar, right there, parallel to the humerus. And the movable bar is going to go into flexion. All right. Now we're going to be taking the measurement, and the measurement for elbow flexion is 140. 140 elbow flexion. Alright, so now we're going to be doing forearm supination. The patient is going to be in a sitting position. The humerus or shoulder is going to be adducted. Elbow is going to be at 90 degrees, and forearm in mid position. Next step is I'm going to be giving the patient pen. Please hold it perpendicular to the floor, sir, right there. Alright, and after that we're going to be taking, checking for the bony landmark, which is going to be in the third MCP. First digit, second, third MCP. I'm going to be using the smaller goniometer. I'm going to put my goniometer over the fulcrum, over the axis of rotation, over the third MCP. So the non-movable bar is going to be perpendicular to the floor, and the movable bar is going to be parallel to the floor. Once I have that, I'm going to be taking my first measurement, which is 0. Now I'm going to stabilize, and I cannot stabilize over the wrist, so I'm going to stabilize proximal to the elbow, so we don't restrict the motion. Okay, I'm going to stabilize there. And now, while I stabilize and I keep my finger over the third MCP, I'm going to ask the patient to please, sir, when I ask you, not yet, you're going to do this movement. Your hand is going to be turning around, up, okay? So, 1, 2, 3, turn your hand up, okay? So now when the hand is right there, I can remove my hand from the stabilization place. I'm going to put my goniometer over the axis of rotation, which is the third MCP. The non-movable bar is going to be on the MCP, and I'm going to move my movable bar in supination towards the pen. So now we're going to be taking, now we're going to be taking the first measurement, right there. Alright, so the first measurement is 90, actually, perfect. 90 for forearm supination. Okay, now we're gonna be doing the same process but the opposite movement. So next one you're gonna be doing, sir, is instead of going like this, your hand is gonna be going like that.
Okay.
Okay? So now patient is gonna be sitting upright, shoulder adducted 80 elbow 90 degrees, and forearm in mid position. I'm gonna be giving you, sir, a pen. You're gonna be holding the pen perpendicular to the floor, right there. Make like a grip. And I'm gonna be now placing the non-movable bar perpendicular to the floor on the third MCP, and the movable bar parallel to the pen to take the first measurement. And the first measurement is gonna be 0. Alright? Now I'm gonna take the goniometer off. I'm gonna stabilize proximal to the elbow, so patient freely can move the forearm, and I'm gonna keep my finger on the third MCP, which is the axis of rotation. Now, sir, at the count of 3, you're gonna bring your hand down, okay? So 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you. And now I'm gonna be placing the goniometer again over the third MCP, the non-movable bar, and the movable bar is gonna go towards the pen. All right, and now we're gonna be assessing the measurement for arm pronation, and is 90 degrees as well. Yeah, 90 degrees for arm pronation. So now we're gonna be doing shoulder flexion. Patient is gonna be standing upright. The humerus is gonna be adducted, ADD, and the forearm is gonna be in neutral. All right, that's very important. The second step is we're gonna be finding the bony landmark, which is the humeral of the head. We're gonna be finding it between the clavicle and the scapula. The end of the scapula right there. And we're gonna kind of going to 1.5 inches or 2 inches below the acromion process. So in between the clavicle and the scapula, and we're gonna do 1.5 inches to the acromion process. We're gonna find the humeral head right there. So the first part is we're gonna be taking our first measurement. So the stationary bar is going to be going perpendicular to the trunk, okay, and the movable bar is going to be going parallel to the humerus. And the first measurement right there is going to be a 0, okay, 0. Perpendicular to the trunk, the non-movable bar, and the movable bar parallel to the humerus. Next step we're gonna do is we're gonna be stabilizing, and we're gonna stabilize over the shoulder. So we're gonna be stabilizing the trunk, okay? We're gonna be stabilizing the trunk, and next part we're gonna be doing is gonna be so now we're gonna be stabilizing the trunk over the head of the humerus. We want to proximal to it, okay? And we don't want to lose our axis of rotation. And next step, I'm going to ask you, sir, while I stabilize and put my hand on over the trunk, I'm going to ask you to please bring your hand forward all the way up, sir. All right. So now this move a little bit lateral. So that the head of the humerus is going to be a little lateral, okay? So that move over here. Now I can let go of you keep your arm there, sir, of my stabilization, and I'm going to put the non-movable bar over the head of the humerus, which is right there, and parallel to the trunk, and the movable bar is gonna go into flexion, into flexion, parallel to the, so this one it goes parallel to the trunk, and this one goes parallel to the humerus. We're going to be taking our measurement, and our measurement in this case was 160 for shoulder flexion. 160. I don't know if you can see. 160 for shoulder flexion. All right. Now we're going to be doing the same process to a shoulder extension. All right, now we're going to be doing shoulder extension. Patient is going to be standing upright. Shoulder is going to be in adduction, ADD. Forearm is going to be neutral. Now we're going to be finding the head of the humeral head. Now we're going to be finding the humeral head, which is going to be between the clavicle and the end of the scapula, right here. I'm going to trace the line. Once we do that, we're going to go 1.5 or 2 inches below to find the head of the humerus, right there. Right after that, we're going to put our stationary bar, non-movable bar, over the head of the humerus, right there. So we're going to put the stationary bar perpendicular to the trunk, and the movable bar is going to be parallel to the humerus, right? So our first measurement is going to be 0. Next step we're going to be doing is I don't want to lose the axis of rotation, which is the head of the humerus right there. And I'm going to be stabilizing the trunk so the patient doesn't move. Okay, so I'm going to stabilize it. Alright, so at the count of 3, you please gonna do the movement I previously showed you. You're gonna go extending your arm without compensating. Alright, so please move your arm back into extension. Good. Now we're gonna reposition the goniometer on the axis of rotation, which move a little bit. Okay, lateral. So we're gonna put the non-movable bar over the parallel to the trunk, and the movable bar is going to go parallel to the humerus. And now we're going to see, we're going to be taking the measurement to see what do we got. So our measurement is 60 for shoulder extension. Alright, so now we're going to be doing shoulder abduction, ABD. Patient is going to be standing, the humerus is going to be ADD, adducted. The forearm is going to be in supination. Please put your thumb like going out like that. No, stay, flex your hand. ADD, forearm in supination. The next step, we're going to be finding the bony landmark, which is the acromion process of the scapula on the posterior part. We're going to be tracing a line, and it's going to be a little superior of the border of the scapula, 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches, right there. So once we find the acromion process of the scapula, we're going to be placing the goniometer. The non-movable bar is going to be on the axis of rotation, parallel to the trunk. and the movable bar is going to be parallel to the humerus. We're going to be taking our first rotation, our first measurement. Our first measurement is going to be 0. Always take the first measurement. Now I'm going to stabilize the trunk without losing my axis of rotation, which is the acromion process of the scapula. I'm going to be stabilizing, okay? And sir, when I count to 3, with your thumb, don't do it yet. You're going to go up, okay? From the side, not forward, from the side. When I count to 3, I'm going to stabilize right here. And please sir, you're going to, so I stabilize over on the trunk, okay? And sir, please bring your arm up, side, right there. Just right there, sir. Very good. Now, since I know he didn't compensate, I can let go. And now I'm gonna place again my goniometer right there on the axis of rotation, which is, you know, not really touching, it's a little bit out. Okay, this is the only one that happened on the axis or the axis of rotation, right there. And then the patient, the non-movable bar is going to be parallel to the trunk, and the movable bar is going to go towards the humerus. And again, this is not touching. And we're going to be taking the first measurement, and the measurement is, alright, so now we're going to be working on shoulder abduction. First patient is going to be standing, the shoulder or the humerus is going to be ADD adducted. The forearm is going to be in supination. Please put your thumb pointing out. Second step we're going to be doing is going to find the acromion process of the scapula, which is in the superior part of the scapula, 1.5 deep inch. So this is the only time when the goniometer, the head of the goniometer, is not going to be really touching the axis of rotation. However, we're going to be it's the acromion process. So we're going to be placing the goniometer over it, and it's going to be parallel to the trunk, the non-movable bar, and the movable bar is going to be parallel to the humerus. Alright, so right there, and we're going to take our first measurement without letting go of the axis of rotation, which is 0. Next step is we're going to stabilize the trunk. So I'm going to be stabilizing the trunk while I keep my head on the acromion process, while I keep my finger on the acromion process. Sir, please take your arm side all the way up when okay, that's okay, true, right there, okay? So now I'm going to let go of the stabilization. I'm going to put my non-movable bar over the axis of rotation, which is going to be kind of not touching the non-movable bar, and it's going to be parallel to the trunk, okay? And the movable bar, wait, we're going to go like that, right? And now the movable bar is going to go all the way up into right there, shoulder abduction. And my measurement in this case will be 165 for shoulder abduction, 165. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to be doing shoulder internal rotation. Patient is going to be standing upright. Shoulder or humerus is going to be ABD adducted. Elbow is going to be at 90 degrees. And the forearm is going to be in mid position. Adducted, elbow 90 degrees, and forearm in mid position. Second step is we're going to be finding the acromion process on the elbow, which is this bony landmark right here. Alright, once we find it, we're gonna be placing the stationary bar perpendicular to the trunk. So the stationary bar over the vanilla mark right there. And so I'm gonna be placing my stationary bar over the olecranial process perpendicular to the trunk, and the movable bar parallel to the forearm. Okay? So now we're going to be taking the first measurement, which of course is 0 to start. Now I'm going to stabilize proximal to the olecranial process without letting go. I'm going to hold right here without restricting the motion on the humeral proximal to the olecranial process. I'm going to put my hand right here. And now, I don't want to block the client, so I'm going to hold here slow, kindly. So now, I'm going to ask the client, while I'm stabilizing with my eyes on the olecranial process, I'm going to ask you, sir, to please bring your hand towards your tummy. Alright, now keep your hand right there. I'm going to let go of my hand. I'm going to place the stationary bar over the olecranial process, okay, and the movable bar is gonna go into alright, so let me go a little bit like this because it's a little hard. So the stationary bar is gonna be over the olecranial process, the bony landmark, and this one is gonna go parallel to the arm. And now we're gonna be taking the measurement, and the measurement is clearly 60 for shoulder internal rotation, 60. Alright? Very good. Now, relax there. We're gonna be doing the same but towards external rotation. So you're going to stand up upright there. You did this movement. The following movement is going to be like this. Your arm is going to be there and you're right there. Okay?
Perfect.
Okay. So patient is going to be standing upright posture, shoulder or humerus ADD adducted. Elbow is going to be at 90 degrees and the forearm is going to be in mid position. The second step is we're going to be finding the olecranial process of the elbow, which is this little bony landmark right here. Once we find that, we're going to be placing our stationary bar perpendicular to the trunk. The stationary bar perpendicular to the trunk, and the movable bar is going to be parallel to the mid forearm, to the forearm. So we're going to take our first measurement, which is 0. Now I'm going to find a way to stabilize the humerus proximal to the olecranial process without letting go. So while the patient is there, I'm going to stabilize and I'm going to keep my finger here so I don't lose this. And at the count of 3, sir, please just bring your arm out. Just the forearm. Okay? So 1, 2, 3. Right there. So now I can let go. And I'm going to be placing my stationary bar over the axis of rotation, and the movable bar is going to be going into the sternal position of the arm, and we're going to be taking our second measurement, and our second measurement for this is 80. Yeah, perfect. So 80 is for external rotation. I don't know if you can see, but that's 80. All right, so now we're gonna do it wrist flexion. Patient is gonna be sitting upright. The shoulder is gonna be adducted, ADD. The forearm is gonna be resting on the table or on the mid position towards the ulnar border. Second step we're gonna do is we're gonna be finding the radial styloid the bony landmark. So extend your finger like this. Gonna look at the two tendons, and we're gonna touch the bony landmark, which is the radial styloid right there. It's like a little bony area. Once we find it, we're gonna be using the smaller goniometer, and the smaller goniometer, the fulcrum is gonna be parallel to the radius, the non-movable bar, parallel to the radius, and the movable bar is gonna be towards the second digit. Okay, parallel to the second digit to the MCP. Okay, so now we're gonna be taking the first measurement, and the first measurement is 0. Okay, once we have that, we're gonna be stabilizing proximal to the bony landmark. So I don't wanna restrain the movement. I'm gonna keep my finger right there. And sir, when I count to 3, I'm gonna please ask you to flex your wrist. So your wrist needs to be flexed like this. Are you looking at my hand, sir?
Yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, flex your hand. Okay, right there. Just keep it right there. We let go of the stabilization. We're gonna be placing our goniometer over the axis of rotation, which is the radial styloid. And so we have this one like this, right? Over the radial styloid. And now the movable bar is gonna go towards the second digit. Parallel to the second digit. And we're gonna be taking the measurement, which is right there. And the measurement is 80 for wrist flexion. 80 for wrist flexion. Alright, so now we're gonna be doing wrist extension. Patient is gonna be sitting, humerus is gonna be in adduction, adducted. The forearm is gonna be over the table in a mid position over the humerus side. So now we're going to be doing wrist extension. Patient is going to be sitting upright. Humerus is going to be adducted, ADD. Forearm is going to be in a mid position, resting over the table, over the ulnar side. Now we're going to be using the smaller goniometer again. And we're going to be finding the bony landmark, which is the radial styloid. Patient is gonna extend his finger. We're gonna trace it along the two tendons, and we're gonna find the little bone right here, which is the radial styloid right here. I can feel it now. And now I'm gonna be applying the goniometer. The non-movable bar is gonna be towards the radial side of the forearm, right there. And the movable bar is going to be parallel to the second digit or second MCP. Right there. And we're going to have the first measurement, which is 0. And now I'm going to stabilize proximal on the forearm without blocking. I'm gonna keep my finger right there, and now when I count to 3, sir, you're gonna bring your hand towards me, okay? So stabilizing proximal to the radial styloid. Sir, please bring your hand towards me. Flex, extend, extend right there, okay? So now I can let go. I'm gonna put my goniometer. The non-movable bar is gonna be over the radial styloid right there, and the movable bar is gonna go towards the second digit. So patient has 70 of wrist extension. Perfect. Towards the pinky.
Okay. Facilito.
Alright, so patient, we're gonna be doing wrist ulnar deviation. Patient is gonna be sitting. The forearm is gonna be on pronation. The shoulder or humerus is gonna be adducted. The wrist is gonna be on neutral, and the digits are gonna be relaxed. Alright, so forearm in pronation, wrist in neutral, fingers relaxed. Alright, so now what we're gonna be doing is gonna find the bony landmark, which is the capitate, the bony, the capitate over the third MCP. So we, over the metacarpal, we're gonna follow the line, and we're gonna find the bony landmark, and we're gonna find the capitate bone. It's right here over the third metacarpal. Okay, so once we find the bony landmark, I'm gonna be applying my stationary bar parallel to the dorsum of the forearm. The stationary is gonna be parallel to the dorsum of the forearm. Okay, over the axis of rotation, and the movable bar is gonna be parallel to the third digit. Okay, so we're gonna get our first measurement. Please, sir, leave your fingers normal, relax. You don't move until I say please. Okay, so the first measurement is gonna be 0. So we always take the first measurement. Then I don't wanna lose my axis of rotation, which is the capitate bone of the wrist. And I'm gonna be stabilizing proximal on the forearm without blocking the movement. Proximal to the capitate bone and the wrist, but without blocking. And next, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna ask the client to please bring your hand towards me, sir, towards your pinky, right there. Now I can let go of the stabilization. I'm gonna bring my goniometer. I'm gonna put the stationary bar over the capitate bone of the wrist, right there. It's gonna be parallel to the dorsum of the forearm. So right there, or the capitate, parallel to the dorsum of the forearm, and the movable bar is gonna come towards the third digit. Please, sir, bring your hand right there into ulnar. Just relax. So the measurement is 30 for, not 20.
It's 20. It can be from 0 to 30.
Huh?
It can be any number from 0 to 30.
Yeah, but it was 30, so
No, it's
30.
yeah, 30.
So the measurement for wrist ulnar deviation is 30. For wrist ulnar deviation is 30. Alright, so now we're gonna be doing the same thing but towards. Tío, ¿puedo dejar? No, it's gonna be 20. Alright, so we're gonna do wrist radial deviation now. The patient is gonna be sitting. Sir, can you please get closer to the table?
Yes.
Your shoulder, the humerus is gonna be adducted, ADD. The forearm is gonna be on pronation. The wrist is gonna be neutral. The fingers are gonna be relaxed. Okay? So humerus adducted, forearm in pronation, wrist in neutral, and fingers relaxed. The second step we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be finding the capitate bone, which is gonna be over the third digit, over the third metacarpal. We're gonna follow the line, trace the line, and we're gonna find a little bone over the wrist, which is the capitate bone. Once we find that bone, we're gonna put our goniometer parallel to the dorsum of the forearm on the axis of rotation, and the movable bar is gonna come towards the third digit. And we're gonna be taking our first measurement always, which is gonna be 0. Okay, so that's the started point. Now we're gonna stabilize proximal to the capitate bone of the wrist without blocking the wrist. And without letting go, I'm gonna ask you, sir, to please bring your hand towards your pinky. Turn your hand towards your pinky. Yeah,
Sí,
right.
hicimos ese. Este ya lo hicimos.
Okay, so without letting go, I'm gonna ask you, sir, to please bring your hand towards your thumb. Alright? Right there towards your thumb. Now I can let go. Just relax. Now I'm gonna let go. And I'm gonna put my stationary bar over the capitate bone, parallel to the mid forearm. Sir, don't move your hand anymore, just leave it there. And now we're gonna be taking our movable bar towards the third digit. Can you please? So let me see. So now we're gonna stabilize the forearm, and we don't gonna let go over the capitate bone over the wrist, right there. I stabilize. Sir, now please bring your hand towards your thumb. Without lifting your hand, sir. Just bring your hand towards the thumb. Into radial deviation. So kind of like that, right? Okay. So now I'm gonna let go of the stabilization. I'm gonna put the goniometer, the non-movable bar, over the axis of the rotation, which is the capitate bone, right there, parallel to the forearm, the non-movable bar. And now the movable bar is gonna go over the third digit, and my measurement is 20 for radial deviation. Okay.
Voy a cortar ahí.
Alright, so we're gonna be doing the metacarpophalangeal flexion. Patient is gonna be sitting upright posture, shoulder is gonna be adducted, the humerus, the forearm is gonna be in mid position, elbow is gonna be flexed, forearm is gonna be in mid position towards the ulnar border, the wrist is gonna be in neutral, supported by the table. Relax your fingers, sir, please. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the bony landmark, which is gonna be the second metacarpal joint, right here, the second MCP. That's gonna be our bony landmark. Next one we're gonna do is we're gonna put our fulcrum, the goniometer, over the second MCP. And the stationary bar is going to be placed on top of the metacarpal, and the movable bar is going to be placed on top of the proximal phalange. Okay, we're going to be taking our measurement, okay, which of course is going to be 0, right there, 0 to start. Okay. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stabilizing proximal, so we don't want to block the wrist. We're going to be stabilizing right here without. Now we're going to be, we don't going to lose sight of the axis of rotation, which is the second MP joint. Going to be placing the fulcrum of the goniometer over that, over the second metacarpal. I'm sorry. So which one es la que no se mueve? Esta es la que se mueve, ¿no? So we're gonna be placing, we're gonna be stabilizing proximal to the wrist. Well, I mean proximal to the second metacarpal, but we don't wanna block the wrist. I'm gonna be stabilizing right here. I'm gonna be placing my goniometer over the axis of rotation, which is the second metacarpal, and the movable bar on top of the proximal phalange. Now I'm gonna let go. Now I'm gonna ask the patient to please flex your fingers, sir. Patient is gonna be flexing. Right there. And now the measurement for my patient is 90 degrees for metacarpophalangeal flexion, for the digit flexion. Now we're gonna be doing proximal interphalangeal flexion. So we're gonna pretty much repeat the same steps. Patient is gonna be in a sitting position, elbow is gonna be flexed, forearm is gonna be in mid position toward the ulnar side of the hand. The fingers are gonna be relaxed and the wrist is gonna be in a neutral position. I'm gonna be finding the metacarpal, which is gonna be, the PIP. Place the fulcrum over the PIP. So this is the PIP joint. Gonna be putting the goniometer over the PIP. The non-movable bar is gonna be placed on the top of the proximal phalange, and the movable bar is gonna be on the middle phalange. Okay, so first we're gonna take our first measurement, which of course is gonna be 0. Then we're gonna stabilize proximal to that, so we don't really wanna restrict the movement, but we're gonna be stabilizing over the metacarpal area. Actually, we're gonna stabilize the metacarpal, and then I'm gonna be placing my goniometer on the PIP again. So right here, this is the axis. I'm gonna be stabilizing right here. Now I'm gonna let go of the stabilization. First I'm gonna ask you, sir, to please flex your finger. Flex your finger, only that one. And now I'm gonna be placing the goniometer over the PIP. The non-movable bar is gonna be placed on top of the proximal phalange, and the movable bar is gonna go over the middle phalange. Okay. And now I'm gonna be measuring the movement, and the PIP flexion is it was really like a 110 for my patient for PIP flexion. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna do the DIP. Patient is gonna be sitting upright, for shoulder is gonna be adducted, humerus adducted. Elbow is gonna be flexed. The forearm is gonna be on the mid position towards the ulnar side of the hand. The wrist is gonna be on neutral, supported in the table, wrist in neutral. So next thing we're gonna do is gonna find our bony landmark, which is the DIP, the last joint of the finger of the second digit. So we're gonna find our landmark, which is gonna be the DIP joint. Third, we're gonna put the fulcrum of the goniometer over the DIP. The non-movable bar is gonna be, the stationary is gonna be on the middle of the phalange, and the movable bar is gonna be on the distal phalange. On the distal phalange is gonna be the movable bar. Now I'm gonna remove my goniometer. I don't wanna lose DIP. I'm gonna stabilize PIP so he doesn't compensate. Next thing that I'm gonna be doing while I stabilize the PIP, I don't wanna lose the DIP. Sir, can you flex your thumb, the last part of your thumb? I'm sorry, of your second digit. Can you flex right there? Right there. So now I'm gonna place our goniometer again on the axis of rotation, which is the DIP. Now I can let go of that. And now I'm gonna bring the movable bar over the distal phalange. And I'm sorry. We're gonna be assessing the number. Patient has 80. Sorry, I move a little bit. So DIP 84, DIP flexion. And we have concluded this session.